Hello Targar friends. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here and it's time for another work mode workout. As you guys can see, I have my new setup. I don't quite know what I'm going to do yet with the lighting, but I'm actually fine with this lighting. I think it works. We can see everything clearly enough even if there's a bit of shadow. But I have a lot more space. It gives me a lot more room for angles. I can get a little more of a side angle, easier for these squats, and you guys can see my depth better on the box squats. Same box and same pad I've been using. Today we did chain work. Heavy chains, the heaviest chains I've used on camera. For those curious, the actual chains that are hanging that coil down at the bottom, it's 50 pounds on each side. So that's 100 pounds of chain tension with somewhere about 3 or 4 pounds of leader chain. So you could assume, maybe 5 pounds more than what's on the bar when I'm at the bottom. Right? So largely we're pretty close to what's at the bottom with what we actually see on the bar. But we're adding 100 pounds of extra weight on the way up because those chains pretty much uncoil at the bottom, and then as you can see they're barely touching the floor at the top. So we can add 100 pounds at the top versus what's at the bottom. Now what I want to remind people though, with this sort of contrast training using accommodating resistance, your maxes are not going to be much stronger than what you have at the bottom of the lift, right? You can assume that if you hit an all-out max with something that's quite a bit heavier at the top than the bottom, that it's probably, the weight at the bottom is probably 95% or more in some cases of your true max, but 95% is a pretty good estimate. But we still need to be working at least 90% at the bottom, and that's the point I always make to people. If you're not gaining maximum strength, you need to have at least 90% of your max at the point of most tension, which is the bottom of a squat, bottom of a bench, things like that. Now, we did pretty good on this. We built up on this to 405 on the bar. Yes, it was heavy. This was a true max for me. 405 on the bar, plus 100 pounds of chain tension, plus, whatever the lead chains are. So we could assume, 410 at the bottom? Well, we know 440 is my max box squat, right? I've done 440 off this box on camera. Also, a lot of people ask me, are you doing high bar or low bar? I took a shirt off. You guys can see that I'm doing high bar. That bar is on my traps. In the high bar fashion, not the silly high bar fashion you see some people doing, where it's literally up on their neck, above the traps. No, it's sitting on my traps, but above the delt, right? It's pretty much resting on the delt, but it's not on my back, right? It's not actually down on my back. So a couple things are being done different. Shirt off, and that's fine because I do high bar and I'm not worried about it. My skin's tough enough to handle over 500 pounds sitting on it at the lockout. Yeah, make your traps tough. I went over to wrist wraps. Now, one of the things people notice, my forward lean problem is slowly improving. All right, I feel like the wrist wraps were one of the things that I needed to sort that out. And when we're talking about the forward lean is a thoracic rounding at the top third of my lift. A lot of people keep calling it good morninging, but it's not. And if you're going to call it good morning, you're not going to be able to fix your own squat if this problem exists, because it's not. A good morning squat is a different problem. It has different solutions. So you better understand the difference if you want to fix your own squat. But with this, the fact that we got it largely under control using over 500 pounds at the lockout, because we are locking over 500 at the top now. In the ballpark of 510 at the lockout. Now, a lot of it has to do with the accommodating resistance I've been doing, getting better at doing the lockouts. Number 2, more quad work, which is still going to be a weakness. I need to keep strengthening my quads, specifically on my squat. And getting tighter using that higher bar position and using the wrist wraps. All right, those wrist wraps are kind of one of the final elements. I needed this stuff I'll discuss more later in the future. It has to do with just tightness and hand position. Sumo deadlift with chains. I didn't go that heavy today on these. I didn't pull the true max. Some people say, well, why not? Because I was tired after that squat. And what I'm doing, I'm just going to rotate through different forms of deficit sumos. I'm going to use different chains and bands and stuff on these. And I'm just going to pull to what seems like a relatively challenging single. And for those curious, that's 38 pounds of chains. See, and I know that. I know exactly to the pound how much all my chain sets weigh. Not counting those hooks, those little clamps at the top, that's a pair of 19-pound chains. I got 38 pounds of chain. So we only had 465 on this, and you guys are like, didn't you pull 505 the other day? Yeah, I did pull 505 off of the deficit, but I felt fairly fatigued today. This felt fairly heavy, and I didn't want to hit a grinder. I feel like had I gone up heavier, it would have started slowing down. And we're going to slowly just keep working these different positions and get practice in on different sumo pulls. But every now and then we'll start testing maxes and stuff. I feel like my hook grip is getting better and better. And one of the things I'm going to do for that's going to be more rowing. I feel like I need to be doing a bit more rowing. So this 5x5 you guys see me doing on the chest supported row, I might start doing it every workout. So on my bench days and my squat and deadlift days, which will give me 20 total sets a week. All right, that's a lot of volume, but there's no axial loading involved. All right, this is a fairly low fatigue exercise in terms of structure. It doesn't put a lot of stress on joints, doesn't put stress on the spine. So it's just a good strength and muscle builder, pulling explosively from a dead stop. And some people said, why don't you try to hold it up at the top? Because that pad, when I hit that top, that pad really pulls. Like it creates almost a bounce. And even holding it for that brief second I do when I hit the top is fairly difficult, but that's good because it gives its own interesting training effect. But I'm thinking for these, I'm going to go ahead and push these up towards their maximum volume because it's a great accessory movement that's really easy to recover from. And it will help thicken up everything that I need stronger, and then I can worry about less face pulls and stuff like that, because this will also give me 20 sets that are going to hit the rear delts really well, in addition to those 10 sets of side laterals I do every week, which will also work the rear delts. I cannot worry about some of these other exercises. And it seems like I feel these in my lats more than anything else I've done. I've told people that in general, even dead hang pull-ups, I don't feel in my lats. Yet I still have a very well-developed back, and people are like, actually, your back is your best body part. Now, I'm not a bodybuilder by any means, but that gets pointed out. Yeah, and I still don't feel anything in my back. This exercise I do. Let's go ahead and see if we can just thicken everything up, because at the end of the day, I would rather be thick and big, important muscles than have body fat at any given weight. I'm keeping my diet on point. I will lose fat over time. We'll get leaner. I'm obviously a lot leaner now, confirmed by DEXA scans. I'm not ripped, but I'm leaner. Still got the loose skin, still got some fat. We'll take it off eventually, but we're going to get stronger along the way. I'm going to keep my diet on point, do all these accessory movements, and now the hip belt squat. Because of this angle, I can actually do angles where we can see my depth. Today I really spent with just getting the technique down with volume, confirming my depth. Next workout, we're going to start slowly ramping it up. We're just going to get as strong as possible doing a 5x5 on it. I feel like this is going to be a really, really important accessory movement. It's going to carry over to my squat. It's going to carry over to my deadlift. It's getting me the foot position I want for my squat, which is very similar stance to my sumo pull. And we're going to build that strength out of the bottom with this, with again, an exercise that doesn't put axial loading on me. So I can get more training volume in and still recover from it. Now, people are saying, why the fives? Because tension matters. We're not just worried about gaining muscle. We're worried about gaining muscle in a way that's going to give carryover to maximum strength. Tension matters. So it's going to be a combination of tension and volume rather than just straight pump work on lifts like this. So yes, you guys are going to notice most of my assistance movements are going to be 5x5. They're going to be 5x5, focusing on getting as strong as possible in that rep range and volume range. We can adjust volume with the small exercises. And that's the point that needs to be brought home with what I'm doing with my training now. My main exercises are pretty well programmed. We know what I'm doing with squat, bench, and deadlift with max work and dynamic work. Assistance movements are going to go to 5x5 with minimal volume variation. So how do we increase volume? We increase volume off the small movements. I can increase volume with a glute ham raise. I can increase volume with a tricep extension, with a lateral raise, right? So we can do that to hypertrophy with additional volume in these particularly smaller lagging muscles. And that will keep the main exercises going. But yeah, these look a little awkward, and it's just trying to get that last bit at the bottom. I'm trying to get deep on these and trying to do so in a way that the belt doesn't just chew me apart, because that belt sometimes can be awkward, but I'm getting better at it. And now we'll try to get as strong as possible on this. And we'll set a goal of 300 pounds for 5x5. Right now I've got 225 on there for those curious. It's 5 of the calibrated plates. So it's exactly 225 to the pound because of the calibrated plates. But we want to get that to 300. So that'll be the next goal. So I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.